Donald Trump is still the frontrunner for the Republican 2024 presidential nomination. Let's not let anybody forget that. But having said that, now let's get into the part where nobody wants Donald Trump to run for president, because I do find that absolutely fascinating. You have all these polls out there showing that a majority of voters, the non-Republican type, don't want Trump to ever run again. And by the way, that includes a majority of independents. A majority of Republicans do want him to run again, but it's not even a strong majority, and Trump is still polling, according to the aggregates, 15 points ahead Ron DeSantis, who is in the second place for the 2024 nod. But when you dig deeper, right, you go beyond the polls, you start actually talking to people, influential people in the Republican Party, and they've all pretty much come to a consensus at this point. And that consensus is that Donald Trump's big announcement and everything that has happened since then with his campaign for president has been met with a giant yawn. There's no enthusiasm, one former state GOP chair said. There's no enthusiasm for him. There's no excitement. People are ready to move forward, but he wants us to keep looking in the rearview mirror to see his orange face there. And most Republicans, again, at least those in positions of power, are sick and tired of it. They're tired of the losing. The guy who promised there'd be so much winning we'd get sick of it has proven time and time and time again in multiple different elections that he is toxic for the Republican Party. Let me read a couple of these quotes. You have Bob Vanderplatz, the evangelical leader in Iowa, who's very influential in the early primaries, said this: "The people talking about Trump's campaign announcement in my circles, it's almost like it didn't happen. That, to me, is what is telling, where people believe we probably need to move forward, not look in the rearview mirror." Then you have a quote over here from Saul Anuzis. I probably mispronounced that, but I'm sorry. He is the former chair of the Michigan Republican Party, and he had this to say: "It's shocking in the sense that I think he felt that he could scare everybody out of the field and become the presumptive nominee, and it just didn't work. My perception was that there would be a larger enthusiasm for his candidacy from those who were supportive of him. Instead, it's more like a thud. The excitement's just not there." Now, the other part of this, too, is that Donald Trump has not held any rallies since he made his big announcement. Part of the reason for that is some of the places where they would want him to come and rally, like Georgia, they're actually telling him, please, for the love of God, do not show up in the state of Georgia and screw things up for Herschel Walker. So they're telling him to stay away. They're telling him to shut his mouth. They're telling him straight up, we don't want you around. Trump didn't take the hint. They had wanted him, of course, to wait until after the Georgia runoff to announce he was even running for president. He didn't do it, and it's been a disaster ever since then. But it's the enthusiasm, folks, that part of it that is missing. When Trump did come out in 2015 and announce he was running in 2016, there was all this enthusiasm. It was a weird new thing, like, what the hell, Donald Trump? We couldn't take our eyes off it. And then after he lost in 2020, and again, refused to admit that he lost and has spent every day since then whining about losing, claiming he didn't actually lose, even though we all know he did. The problem is, very psychological issue, he didn't let us miss him. He stayed right there in the forefront in Republican politics. So people were sick of him in 2020. That's why they didn't vote for him. Had he disappeared, had he gone away, had he given folks an opportunity to forget about him, he would have been in a better position to run again in 2024. And I know that sounds weird, but listen to me. Some of the most unpopular presidents in history, after they leave office, within 2 years, what happens to their approval ratings? Back up through the roof. Reagan, H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, pretty much Richard Nixon, pretty much everybody sees a bump in their poll numbers after they leave office. Do you know why? Because most of them disappear for a while. And the longer they're out of public view, the longer they're out of the news cycle, the more people forget about some of the worst things they did, and they look back a little more fondly. I think George W. Bush, of course, is the best example of that. He left office with an approval rating underwater. He's now seen in an approving light by more than 60% of the country. That's insane. Trump didn't give his base, the Republican base, the opportunity to do that. He didn't give moderates the opportunity to do that. We didn't get to miss him because he never went away, so people continued to get sick and tired of him. Now he's thrown himself back in there. People are even more tired. His own hardcore supporters walk out of his rallies, usually within 10 to 15 minutes of him starting to speak. The videos are out there. They had to block people at his presidential announcement from leaving the room because nobody wanted to be in there anymore. The enthusiasm has left the building. And that's not going to work out very well for Donald Trump in 2024. Now, he may be helped, of course, if you get a crowded Republican field like we had in 2016. That's going to dilute the normal Republican vote in the primaries, and it could absolutely propel Trump to the nomination. But that's not going to be enough to propel him into the White House. That's kind of what we just saw with the midterms. Yeah, the crazy wackadoos are going to get out there and they're going to vote, but you're going to see a lot of independent but Republican-leaning voters vote Republican for most of the ticket, but vote against the crazies at the top of the ticket. It's what happened with Mastriano. It's what happened with Dr. Oz. It's what happened with Kari Lake. It's what happened with a lot of Republicans with Herschel Walker in the initial Georgia Senate race. They will vote Republican, but they will absolutely not vote for the people that they're sick and tired of, that they think are incompetent. So yes, it will help Trump in a primary if there's a crowded field, and of course, if his base turns out. But that won't win you a general, not even close to it. So I do think Trump could easily win a primary. I think that's a very real possibility, but I also think it's a real possibility that he doesn't. You know, there's lots of different factors working for and against him at this point, but none of those factors working for him will help him in a general election. So there's the big difference. Because what'll happen is if Trump wins the nomination in the primaries, all these Republicans who hate him right now, like the hardcore Republicans, but we just don't like Trump, they're going to change their tune. They're all going to support Donald Trump. We get that. We're not going to delude ourselves into thinking that somebody like Kevin McCarthy is not going to vote for Trump. It's going to happen. Mitt Romney will vote for Trump. But the independent voters out there, they won't. That's the point. We saw it in the midterms. They are more than willing to either skip that or vote for the Democrat when they don't like the person at the top and then vote Republican straight down the rest of the ticket. That's what Trump is looking at in the 2024 general election, of course, assuming he makes it that far, because there's just no enthusiasm, because people are sick and tired of listening to that lunatic. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel? We also encourage you to like, comment, and share, but again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.